Here we go. Let's get into the MMA session. We're here to talk about UFC on ESPN 5, Covington versus Lawler, with your host, David and the Modern Man. Let's first talk about the fight with title implications at welterweight. Colby Covington, 14-1 versus Robbie Lawler, who's 28-13. Robbie Lawler's style is a great counter to Colby's wrestling style. He's faced the likes of Josh Koscheck, Johnny Hendricks 2 times, showing that he has great takedown defense and is able to force the fight on the feet where he has power in both hands. He's really good at putting his whole body into his punches, as well as knowing when to explode with them. The key for Robbie Lawler to win this fight is to make Colby Covington pay for going for the takedowns, sprawling, getting the underhook, and throwing uppercuts on the break, and make him pay for going for takedowns and exposing his head. This was a hard fight for me to call, but I'm going to have to go with Robbie Lawler. I think 5 rounds is plenty of time for Robbie to find his left hand. I got Lawler with a late TKO in the 5th round. Modern Man, I've honestly gone back and forth on this fight. How do you see this going?
This fight will start off at a fast pace. Colby's going to come out trying to put volume on Lawler. Now let him sit down on his punches, get him on the back foot, and try to push him up against the fence. To me, Colby is an unrefined Rory McDonald. He tries to throw head kicks, spinning elbows, combinations of punches starting with the jab cross, hook, uppercut, etc. He's very similar in his game plan and what he attempts to do as Rory McDonald, but he's a very different fighter in that he's chaotic in his approach, not very refined in his technique, and absorbs a bit more damage. So for that, I actually see him losing this fight to Robbie Lawler for the same reason that Robbie Lawler was able to beat Rory McDonald. Colby does stand a chance in this fight if he does get Robbie Lawler playing defense a bit too much, if he does push him against the cage or even get him on the ground, causing Robbie to consistently have to force himself back up. Either way this fight goes, it'll be a chaotic fight with a lot of damage being done to both fighters, specifically Colby, only because I don't see him having very good defense or very good striking, but he does try to get in people's faces, and Robbie's just way too used to that, and he will punish Colby for it. So I have this fight being ended in a brutal fashion with Robbie Lawler TKOing Colby in the 3rd round. So let's get into the next fight of the night, which is a fight between veterans, and I mean veterans, in Clay Guida and Jim Miller. Clay Guida is coming into this fight at 35-18, while Jim Miller is 30-13. Jim Miller's coming into this fight at 35 years old with 16 submission wins in his UFC career. Jim Miller, even at this stage in his career, is a legit ranked opponent and difficult fight for pretty much anyone that's not in the top 3 of the lightweight division. Jim Miller is a well-rounded, extreme veteran of the UFC and the lightweight division, which speaks in and of itself. I'm not trying to disregard Clay Guida, but I see Jim Miller bringing more to the table as an all-around MMA fighter. He's going to be a little bit more technical and patient, than Clay Guida, and it's going to cause Clay Guida to just get a little frantic and a little too impatient, and he's going to run into either a clinch, a scramble exchange, or a powerful punch from Jim Miller, and in that exchange, in any of those situations, Jim Miller will end up taking his back or some kind of dominant position and submitting Clay Guida. But I'm going to say it's going to take up to the 2nd round because Clay Guida is a veteran himself, but he can't help but be himself in a fight and get aggressive, try to destroy people. So David, I'm not trying to disregard Clay Guida, but I know Clay Guida is kind of your guy. You kind of like him a lot. What do you see in this fight? How do you see it really going with your boy Clay Guida? Does he bring something that I'm not explaining yet or seeing?
Well, one key component to Clay Guida's game is his constant head movement. It makes him hard to hit as well as it sets up his offense. He gives his opponent multiple looks, different points of entries that he can attack from. He'll often bob and weave to get into range, where he can also disguise his takedown attempts. When Clay Guida mixes all these elements together in his wrestle boxing, that's when we see the best Clay Guida. Even with the move to a bigger gym and all the improvements Guida has made there, he still has the tendency to turn it into a brawl, forgetting to mix up his takedowns, which not only is favorable in the judge's eyes, but it also allows for his striking to be more effective. We've seen him get predictable with his movements and get timed with head kicks and knees in the past, and when he gets hit, he tends to no longer set up his takedowns, which causes his attempts to be more obvious. We've seen him get caught in multiple guillotines in that fashion, and I expect Jim Miller to be patient and play it smart and force Guida to make a mistake. I'm picking Jim Miller with a 3rd round submission. In one of the deepest divisions in the UFC, we have a lightweight bout between Nasra, who's 10-2, versus Joaquim Silva, with a record of 11-1. Unlike most strikers using the jab to set up the rest of their offense, Nasra uses his power hand to set up his offense. throwing it as a straight, following up with a wide hook to the body, or opening with overhand left, following with more wide, fast looping hooks. Along with the high volume, his punches also generate a good sting. He knows how to use his footwork to shift his weight properly and get his whole body into the shots. I see this fight primarily staying on the feet. Considering Silva also likes to strike, Nasra is going to have the advantage in those exchanges due to his speed and long reach. He can also take advantage of when Silva throws naked kicks without setting them up. That's why I'm going to go with Nasra in a unanimous decision. Nasra will be able to land cleaner, harder strikes. Modern Man, this has the potential to be fight of the night. Which one of these 155ers do you see getting this hand raise?
If Nasra is anything like his cousin Kevin Gastelum, he's going to be a patient, powerful fighter with a well-rounded natural skill set, which is what he's going to need when he fights someone like Joaquim Silva, because Joaquim Silva is a physical specimen. The man is chiseled like a Greek god, and he comes into that cage as confident as a Greek god. He's not really diverse with his striking. He comes in with a jab cross. He'll throw a naked head kick up in there where he doesn't really set it up too much. When it comes to his clinch game, he does throw knees to the body, but like I said, they're not too technical because he's not too technical himself. He looks for uppercuts. He doesn't really turn his hips over on any of his punches. He usually just throws arm punches whenever he's throwing his punches because he's so used to being such a powerful opponent. In my opinion, it looks like he's not used to being punished for the mistakes he makes in his stand-up game. Because whether he's in danger or whether the opponent's hurt or not, he still makes the same tendencies to where he throws his power punch and he leaves his weak side hand down. He does tend to move all the way out after he throws a combination, but then he kind of blitzes his way all the way back in, and it's somewhat dangerous because he doesn't keep his hands up all the time when he does it. This fight should be a very entertaining stand-up battle back and forth between these young fighters with very impressive records, but I'm going to go with Joaquim Silva. I think Joaquim's going to impose his will on Nasrat, show that he's the more aggressive fighter and physically large fighter, or more physically imposing fighter, and not really let Nasrat establish a game plan like fighters from the TriStar Gym usually do. I have this going all the way 3 rounds with Joaquim Silva winning at least 2 of them. So let's close the night out with Mickey Gall versus Salim Touare. Mickey Gall's coming into this fight at 5-2, while Salim's coming into this fight at 10-3. I'd like to discuss Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall came into the UFC as a hot prospect with a win over Mike Jackson and the great and powerful CM Punk. But since then, Mickey Gall's been on decline. And I'm not trying to kick the kid while he's down, but it's just a matter of fact. We know what Mickey Gall's strong points are. He's great at jiu-jitsu. He's great at opposing his large frame and stature on his opponents. But recently in the UFC, he's been trying to strike too much, in my opinion. He's been falling in love too much with Muay Thai and falling too much in love with traditional jiu-jitsu. He needs to use his MMA fight IQ and mix it up. He shouldn't be pulling guard. He should be trying to take opponents down and dominate them from a top position and impose his submission game on his opponents instead of pulling them on top of him. When he's in the stand-up game, he shouldn't be waiting for his opponents. He should be walking them down, getting them in the clinch, throwing knees, and trying to mix it up. But Mickey doesn't do that. He seems to be too single-minded when he's fighting, and he just tries to stick to jiu-jitsu, or he's just trying to stick to a traditional Muay Thai game. That's my opinion on what his weak points have been in MMA in the UFC. So in this fight against Salim, he's really going to have to mix it up. I'm hoping he imposes his jiu-jitsu game on his opponent and doesn't try to play the stand-up game too much. So with that, I'm going to say Mickey Gall is going to win this fight via second round submission over Salim the Grizzly Touare.
The UFC matchmakers knew what they were doing when they made this fight. Salim Touare is going to be able to challenge Mickey Gall and provide a good test. Salim's a very patient counterpuncher, which means Mickey's going to have to play it smart and avoid getting hit by Salim's left check hook. He's also not going to make it easy for Mickey Gall to take him down. With a strong grappling background, winning multiple wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments in Poland, this is going to be a closer fight than many people are expecting. I think Mickey Gall is going to be able to take the center of the octagon with Salim giving it up, which means Mickey's going to be able to cut him off and shoot for those double legs, throws combinations, exposing holes in Salim's defense with the high guard, which leaves him open for those double leg shots. At the end of 15 minutes, I see Mickey Gall being the more active fighter and winning a close decision. Some other fights on this card that have potential are the Antonina Shevchenko versus Lucy Pudilova. Lucy is also a striker, but it won't play in her favor against a Muay Thai specialist like Shevchenko. I expect her to light Lucy up for 3 rounds. There's also a flyweight bout between Dana White contender winner Jordan Espinoza looking to crack the rankings versus Matt Schnell. I think Espinoza will find the TKO win, taking advantage of Schnell's aggression in the pocket. And on the other side of the world, Demetrius Johnson looks to move past the semifinals against against Tatsumitsu Wada, who is a skilled grappler. Wada will want to reconsider taking it to the ground against DJ, and I think DJ will dominate on the feet, showing to be the more rounded, diverse technical striker. Eddie Alvarez also fights on the same card and making his return to the lightweight tournament versus Edard Fulayang. If Eddie can force into boxing range, he'll negate most of Fulayang's dynamic spinning attacks. I believe he will and advance to the next round.
So that's it for David and the Modern Man. Thank you for joining us. We ain't dissing nor dismissing. Those are just our predictions.